Hello, I am Jelelle Awen, and this is day 14 of my 33-day video series called Deepen. And today we're going to go into waters in an area of life that usually has the most challenges and also the most gifts in it, and that is the social area of life. So I'm going to say relationships throughout this video, yet that doesn't just include romantic relationships. That's also friendships and family relationships. So feeling relationships with others, basically, is what we're going to go into today. And this is definitely the area for which people have most often looked for support and guidance and help in session space. So it's an area that we've definitely dove into a lot of times, applying this soulful heart way of feeling and being with relationships. Of course, always relationships starting from within. We usually spend some time, of course, feeling the outer dynamics and what's going on in them and what's been going on, often historically, especially for birth family. But then we bring it inward quite soon to look at where that dynamic that's happening on the outside is actually being mirrored because of something happening on the inside, from one part of you to the other. And it's usually quite clear, these dynamics. So for example, a dynamic with your birth mother or your mother usually mirrors a dynamic with your inner mother and your inner child, or your inner teenager, or your inner protector. A situation or a dynamic with a romantic partner usually mirrors a dynamic between your inner masculine and your inner feminine, or vice versa. And sometimes this mirroring is more in shadow to you. You're not really aware of it or conscious of it, and you need that other person to represent it for you. And this is probably one of the biggest paradigm shifts around relationships, to begin to see them as a mirror for the inner dynamic, that they're offering you something important. It's not, this is probably the area where we can get the most into a victim kind of thinking, where this person is doing something to us rather than that they are representing something, a dynamic that is happening inside of us. Sometimes from this life, from one part to another, sometimes from other timelines. So this is the other thing that I feel a lot, especially in soul relationships, is that there's timelines bleeding through here. There's other lifetimes, there's other energies, other karmic dynamics coming through, especially with a soulmate or a sacred union, that are influencing the experience of the relationship in this timeline. But that's, again, another mirror. So the relationships are either mirroring an inner dynamic from this life, or a dynamic that's playing out in other timelines. And as you can start to feel them this way, then you can move from being fused to, with no space, what it is you're experiencing in those relationships. You can move from that fusion of reactivity into a ground of curious, compassionate, objective feeling about what those dynamics have been. When you can get to that, and when you can move from fusion, which is really where codependence lives, is in that fusion, if you can move into the objective curiosity, then you can feel, do I want to continue this relationship or not? Is this nourishing for me? Is this patterning something I want to have continue? Is this dynamic something that I want to, first of all, heal in here, so that it will shift on the outside? And is the person I'm engaged with in this dynamic, are they also interested in shifting it from the inside? is this is probably the biggest piece, especially in romantic relationships, is that we cannot do that work for somebody else. We cannot shift or change them. We can change the usness ground on our side and how we experience the relationship, but we cannot change that other person. And sometimes that's really where the objective observer comes in to say, well, this really isn't enough for me then, right now, where this person is and what they are choosing. And I need to move on now and complete. So I was feeling today how to talk about this in a way that might shed an illuminating light for you, and that might bring in even more objectivity for you to feel and separate from the parts of you that might be, again, fused or ingrained or hooked in or whatever the dynamics are. So I thought I would look at it from the 3D, 4D, and 5D consciousness lens, which I've been introducing in this series. I have 2 videos at the front end of the series that introduce you to what I feel these dimensional consciousnesses represent and what they offer us in each area of life. So this is applying that 3D, 4D, 5D consciousness, the self that is created from that consciousness, to the social area of life and relationships. So I want to feel into for a moment with you what 3D relationships look and feel like. So very often, 3D relationships are the ones we experience with our birth family. We sign up with those souls to come into 3D conditioning. This is very typically, anyway, it would be very unusual that it's something else. So I'm just going to speak for what's common, which is this agreement that we're going to experience this 3D consciousness together, this duality, this density, this polarity, this fear diffusion, this carrying legacies of wounding down the family line, this lineage of often very patterned matriarchal and patriarchal. These are the more wounded archetypes of masculine and feminine. We're going to carry those forward into the family line. We're going to pass them on even in the DNA and in the genes. So I just gave you a higher perspective, though. Usually 3D relationships don't have that higher perspective. They are what they are. You deal with the dynamics. Usually there's a pressure to stay in them no matter what. And if you are different, or you want something more, or you want to express the soul, there's not typically a lot of room in these relationships. They are what they are. And for those souls that are really working 3D consciousness, they're very valuable, and they can get very loyal about them, and they can get very protective of them as well. So if the fact that you're watching this video, you are probably not someone who has a loyalty to 3D consciousness. You're awakening beyond it. Your soul is saying, okay, we experienced that long enough and we need to move on now. So maybe what's typically been called the black sheep and that kind of thing. The main thing with 3D relationships is that they're really more about this locked in unconscious agreement that we're not going to change. That however they see you or perceive you, you need to stay in that bandwidth, and they will stay in theirs. And that's how they're filtering. So this is typically in birth families. This can also be in long-term friendships, especially those from childhood, going into teenagehood, going into adulthood. And the distinctive quality about them is this certain degree of rigidness and linearity and sticking with the norm and conforming. I also call it shrinking to fit. So you're shrinking to fit in with something. This, of course, also reflects 3D culture, and the consensus mainstream culture has these energies. So that's what 3D relationships look and feel like. You probably, as I'm talking about, you probably feel kind of a rumble of it, especially in your third chakra, your personal will center, because they can be very hooked in that way. Now, moving into more of fourth dimensional relationships, this is where the soul comes in. There's more resonance there. There's more feeling of being seen. There isn't so much this bind and tie to the norm and conforming, as there is more of an experience of arising into something new. Four-dimensional relationships, though, in that consciousness, can also have a heaven and hell experience to them, where there's these peaks and blisses, and then there's these total messes. And that usually presents itself in romantic relationship, which is the most powerful growth crucible for us. It invites all of us, even in 3D, invites all of us into it. So our body and our mind and our hearts and our souls, all of our aches are in this basket. And in 3D, I want to say romantic relationships in 3D are usually based on some kind of underground security and safety, especially long-term marriages. So there's, again, this unconscious agreement, we're going to stay together. Whether on the surface it's for the kids, it's for a house, I've heard that one, staying together for a mortgage, staying together for a business, staying together because our families wouldn't understand, staying together because one of the mates supports the other one financially. It can have a lot of layers to it, but they don't feel very alive. The reasons don't resonate on a soul level, and they're not usually much about love. So in the fourth dimensional relationship, there's love. Love is starting to bloom. The soul is starting to come through, but it can really push up the shadow. It can really push up the fears. So often, especially lower 4D relationships can vacillate. They can move into 3D codependence and back out to 4D openings of heart, and then kind of back and forth, and then have 5D and higher bliss experiences. So it's really, the lower 4D relationships are this bliss mess, usually. And it's in the lower 4D area where the advocating starts happening, where the boundary setting starts coming in, where you begin to, as you move into higher 4D, you're able to be that more, where just your energy and your heart presence and your soul presence invites more and more resonance. As that happens, as you become more resonant with you and the relationships within, you don't have this polarized war going on like inside and outside that you did in 3D. As you come into more inner grace and peace in that way, you're just no longer drawn to the drama, and you don't have a need for it in the same way. You want to grow, and you want love, and you want to learn, and you want to see the mirror, but you're not interested in all of the existential safety and security grabs and all of that energy that was in 3D, or the bliss mess, turbulent back and forth karmic stuff playing out in the lower 4. You really want a reflection of your goodness and your bigness. And as you do this, life can get pretty lonely in a way on the outside, as more and more vacancy of relationship happens, because you just get more and more discerning, and your criteria goes up, and what you want to be connected to and part of increases. So while someone in 3D relationships may have huge amounts of people that they know, lots of networking and lots of connections that way, someone in higher 4D may have like 2 relationships that are really meaningful to them, and that's it. Or they may have none. Another piece that I see in people sometimes is their soul really signed up to be a lone wolf. Starting from the very beginning of when they were born into their birth family, they felt separate and they felt isolated, and they didn't feel like they belonged in that birth family. They felt from the beginning that 3D really wasn't for them. So that carries through childhood, adolescence, into adulthood, this feeling of being different and not fitting in. And it's a big thing to choose because it's lonely and isolating and challenging. But I really feel that that lone wolf reaches a place, usually as they're in lower 4D somewhere, they start emerging into this place of remembering that they're meant to be with the pack ultimately, and that unity consciousness is where we're all wanting to return to in more and more moments. So that's 5D. Fifth dimensional relationships become more and more of this unity consciousness feeling, as you're still an individuated consciousness, yet more and more you experience merging with other, especially in romantic relationship. And I've certainly experienced this with Raphael in moments where where he's clearly a masculine, I'm a feminine, but we're merging our consciousness more and more, pulling in metasouls from other timelines that have that experience all the time and infusing that into our relationship. Fifth dimensional relationships have a lot of soul in them. There's a soul resonance there that goes beyond even what you would speak, and yet there's also the capacity to let someone go, to move on if the resonance isn't there. So there's an awareness of what you really want, what you want to see mirrored to you, and what will serve you the most, what will be the most nourishing to you. So this is probably already churning things up for you and parts of you. But what we're going to do today is connect to your 3D relationships, 4D and 5D, and just maybe 5D is more of a higher timeline, dreamy space for you right now. It's so important to energize that, though. That's how you draw it. That's how it begins to come into your life. So we will close our eyes, start to bring our focus inward. You may already be feeling some people in your field, in your soul field, and in your heart as I was talking about this. Start to connect with your breath again. Imagining, feeling white light all around you. Particularly good in this exploration. I'm feeling today that Yeshua, who we connected with yesterday in our Divine Father meditation, and Magdalene, who we connected with in our Divine Mother meditation, want to join us today in this exploration of relationship. And they really represent a sacred union, but also brotherhood and sisterhood. So you can connect to those energies through them in a wonderful way when you need to. I'm going to invite your protector to join us. If you have that connection with them, just invite them to come along today, keying into and connecting with how they feel about your relationships in each of these consciousness levels. How do they feel? Usually the protector is much more protective of the 3D frequencies because there's more fear there, there's more danger there, there's more need to protect you. And as you rise in consciousness with someone with a soul, there's less need for that kind of protection, and there's more resonance. So, taking our protector along, we're going to feel into your 3D third dimensional consciousness relationships, and I feel that we'll go to your family home, a place you associate with your birth family. It may be a dining room or a living room or a particular geography. We're going to walk through the doorway now of that family connection. As you move into that room, notice what you see and feel. You're inviting now all of the souls for which you've agreed to experience a third dimensional connection. So you may see your birth family here. You may even see your current partner if you're aware that that's what they've chosen. You may see some friendships. Take notice, feel into what kind of heart chord you have with them. In my experience, there's the chords can vary depending on which consciousness level we're connected to. So a higher frequency heart chord is more like a chord, like a music chord, C-H-O-R-D. It has a vibrance and a harmony to it. A heart chord in a third dimensional frequency is more like a bind, C-O-R-D chord. It's like a plug-in. You're plugged into that person rather than a flow. So as you feel your heart space in this third dimensional frequency, what are the different chords you have? You may see yourself chorded up to your whole birth family, or your current mate or friends. You may see your protector corded in, or your inner child. I feel that cutting cords, which is such a popular practice these days, while it can energetically separate something, I do feel it's a temporary thing. It's really the feeling with parts of you, their relationship to the person, both from this life and other lifetimes, that creates true separation. And as you raise your consciousness, moving out of the current agreement of 3D consciousness, then you can set the boundaries that need to be set, feel what you need to, and so on. So you could, in this moment, for all of the 3D chords that you identify, you could cut them if you feel drawn to do that. And yet also feel your relationship. Feel what comes up. Feel if it's your inner child that's corded in with your mother, for example, or it's your inner mother that's corded in, or your protector. So really, this is an invitation to go beyond an exercise of cord cutting and into the self-discovery, the deeper self-discovery. And of course, always, how that outer dynamic with the person reflects an inner dynamic going on between one part of you to another. So if you're just new to this differentiation, then it's just feeling these chords and then also noting how you feel in this 3D relationship space. Do you feel overwhelmed, drained, not seen, abandoned? Just whatever you need to feel here. We're going to move now into fourth dimensional relationships, and I'm seeing move out of the family space we were just in into the woods, following the path to your castle, which usually is in more of a fourth dimensional consciousness. And as you approach your castle, invite in all of those souls that you have a fourth dimensional and higher agreement with, that you are going to experience soul frequencies together. Even if they're bliss mess, these are the souls you've agreed that you're going to explore. You may see birth family come forward. Maybe it'll be surprising. Probably it won't. Maybe it's a sibling that you've always felt close to. It could even be a parent that you have more resonance with. It could be friendships that feel like they're transitioning. It could be your current mate, or maybe not. This is, the castle is your essence as it's ascending, as it's awakening. So which relationships feel resonant here, and which ones didn't make it, don't resonate here? Notice that. Feel that. Notice the chords between you and these souls that came forward. Are they more of those binding chords, or are they more of those musical heart chords? If they're the musical heart chords, you may just clean up that chord with some white energy so that love can flow between you more easily. If you feel a strong lower four, sometimes the narcissist empath dynamic lives here in lower four, which is a mirror for your own shadow narcissist and empath relationship. So that one might need quite a bit of cleaning, or even feeling into releasing, setting boundaries, letting go. These relationships in 4D should, though, overall feel more nourishing and more reflective of who you're awakening into. And now we will connect to 5D relationships, and we'll do that by heading up the stairs, that 5D staircase that we've been using, surrounded by white light. Feel your consciousness rise as you step on each stair. It's a wonderful way to raise your frequency. Just keep heading up until you feel like you can't go any farther. And you can always pause the video, of course, and take it as high as you need to. You should feel the 3D relationships quite far away now as you do this. And the 4D maybe as well, although those souls may be coming with you. As you get to a place where you don't want to go any higher, turn toward your left and walk through the door that's there. Feel and see golden earth, golden Gaia, new Lemuria in front of you. These wonderful, vibrant energies of gold. You may see an ocean setting, or a meadow, or a forest, or waterfalls, whatever brings in 5D for you. If you're connected to your 5D self, you can ask them to join you. And as you're here, feel which souls agreed to experience 5D relationship with you. It may be some of the souls that were in the 4th dimensional frequency. They may have also showed up here. There may not be anyone you currently know. It's more feeling of soul family, soul tribe, unity consciousness. So it may be souls you haven't met yet either. You might see yourself in a circle with these beings and just no words being needed, and just an understanding flowing all the way around the circle. More feeling of oneness, even as you're a sovereign individual. So take this in, what this feels like in comparison to the 3D relationships. You shouldn't really feel any chords in 5D relating. It's open heart. It's like the chakras are actually merging together. The beings are merging together. The forms, the energy, the fields. But you're still in your body. And we will stay in this 5th dimensional space as we open our eyes and come back to the present. And I hope this meditation really connected you to the difference in frequencies and will help you navigate and feel what you want more of and what you want less of. And again, the mirror that each of them offer. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow.